Gather us in the lost and forsaken. Gather us in the blind and the lame.
All right, we'll give it a whirl. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Yooper Farmer, our first YouTube video solely dedicated to something other than EMS education or education in general. So we're trying something different, something new. And yeah, a little bit about myself here when it comes to trying something new. I am a huge fan of researching the living daylights out of something, researching it some more, and then eventually I just go and do it. So this is going to be rough. I know this video is going to be bad, but it finally came to that point. I've been looking at how to do this, doing research, reading as much as I can, watching videos as much as I can, and finally I got to the point where, you know what, I'm just going to give it a whirl and see what happens. So here's the first video. I do promise they'll get better as time goes on. Delicious. But introduction. So I've been wanting to do some sort of videos on my YouTube channel now for a while and hook them into the blog that I've been doing for on and off for a few years and really start developing some of that content. So I had ideas of doing gardening, how-to, prepper, maybe even emphasizing on the education part of EMS and bringing some more educational material. Again, it kind of was one of those things I started researching, it started getting out of control, so got to the point where I decided enough is enough, let's just do it. So to celebrate tonight, I have here a Gurkha Royal Challenge. This is actually one of my favorite cigars, but this will be the last Gurkha I'll probably smoke intentionally for quite some time. Maybe in another video I'll explain the controversy that happened with them, but I will no longer be buying Gurkhas. But this is a very special cigar that I've been hanging on to for a while, and I have quite a few reasons to actually celebrate, some of which I will be sharing. As far as the beverage of choice, can't go wrong with a home-brewed hard cider. My very classic recipe, not messed around with. You can see it's got quite a bit of carbonation to it, crystal clear. Very crisp, quite dry. Very good hard apple cider. Again, brewed here at the Yooper homestead. So what are we going to talk about? Reasons to celebrate. Well, first off, I ended up getting a new job with the state of Michigan. It's a bit of a term job, but it's nice. It'll get my foot back in the door with working at the state, do some more stuff with disaster preparedness, and kind of get the blood pumping again and doing more of that public health stuff, which is a lot of fun and very nice. On a prepper side of things, I've accomplished one of my goals that I've been hoping to get done for some time now. So when we talk about prepping, there's something I should preference. I'm not one of those crazy preppers. I'm one of those preppers who would more fall under a homesteader. So there are different types. You have the classic doomsday prepper, lots of ammunition, bunkers, building contingency plans and attack plans as if something's going to kick down your door. But you have other types of preppers as well. Another one comes to the bushcrafters. Those are the guys who give them a knife, preferably, an axe, lovably, but if need be, just a couple of stones, they could walk off into the woods and survive just fine. We also have stuff like the public health preparedness, the public health preppers. Guys in my position who they are concerned about diseases and caring for a whole community. So let me explain a little bit what it means when I say I'm a homestead prepper. I like to prepare for the more traditional and classic stuff that we think of when we used to think of prepping. Food storage. What if my heat goes out? What if my car won't start? How do I feed my animals? What do I do if an animal is attacking my animals? How to protect my crops from animals? Being prepared for those types of contingencies. Now, one, I did grow up in a bit of a rural setting, so this is something I am kind of accustomed to and grew up around. We had to make sure we had enough heating oil to run our furnace, or when we burned wood, that we had enough wood for the winter. We had animals we had to be worried about. We were a bit in the country, so we had to be mindful of storms and what happens if you went into the ditch. So that's my idea of prepping. It's more of the family unit. It has more to do with preparing for more of those mundane emergencies, but making sure that we're ready for those. Now, by being prepared for those, we will, of course, be prepared for a lot of other, more of those ethyl methyl bad stuff, the stuff doomsday preppers lose sleep over. But that's really not our concern here at the Yooper farm here. So I just talked about we accomplished one of the goals. Well, I watched an interesting video, and I believe it's the Canadian Prepper, does a interesting channels, top 10s, a lot of stuff more geared towards the doomsday preppers, but not all of them. He did an interesting video where he talked about measuring different metrics. So yes, do you have a way to generate energy? Well, usually that's just a checkbox. Yes, I have solar panels. Yes, I have a generator. But he was challenging that you should more look at, okay, how many watts can you generate if you had to generate it? If you can generate heat, how many BTUs of heat can you generate? What forms of heating do you have? If you have food, instead of just saying I have 90 days worth of food, how many calories do you actually have? Because what you'll find if you start looking at those food kits and different 48-hour boxes you can buy, they'll all rate what they think you can eat. But in truth, when looking at stuff like food, me, who's a 6-foot tall guy, has to eat a lot more food than maybe one of my children, who can subside on a lot less. So looking at calories, getting a very specific measure. So my goal first was electricity. That's something that we really didn't have a good backup source for whole house electricity. I have a lot of miniature battery banks and some solar cells that can charge those. But beyond tablets and phones and simple electronic devices like that, we didn't really have a good way of generating a lot of electricity for even part of our house. Well, I finally was able to get a generator, get it wired up. So I do have designated outlets throughout my house. We can run approximately 1 kilowatt of reliable energy, which is enough to keep our water pump going and our furnace running, which will lead into the next metric we're looking at, measure we're looking at. So with the generator, we can run a lot of our electrical appliances, yet there'll be a lot of brownouts, so there'll be a lot of stuff that we can't run at this time. So what's this next one is the BTUs, heat. Our heat right now is propane driven, hot water throughout the entire house. So we have those little hot water registers, propane driven heat. So the problem with propane is a lot of people will talk about, one, it can run short, the prices can get extremely expensive. And in a disaster, especially natural disasters like we have up here in the UP, where we get snowed in roads with big snowstorms, if stuff like Line 5 was to be shut down, our propane availability would drastically decrease. So I've been working on trying to get alternate heat sources. Now I have a couple of them that I've had for a very long time, as far as like a kerosene heater. I have some My Little Buddy propane heaters, which works pretty good for small areas. We can usually heat one floor of the house with the kerosene heater. The propane heater is more like one room of the house. Now in the last place we lived, I installed a pellet stove, and I kind of counted that as an alternate heat source. The problem with that is it's very dependent on electricity. There are a few models of pellet stoves out there that don't require electricity, but they are quite expensive, and to actually fire them up and get them and keep them running is a lot more labor intense. I have been looking into getting wood heat inside the house, whether that's an external wood furnace or getting a wood stove. Working on that. It's proved to be a little bit more problematic than I initially thought. I bought myself actually a really nice wood stove that is a multi-purpose stove. So there's one that you can heat a house with, you can cook with, you can burn charcoal, you can burn coal, you can burn wood. Really, really nice, old-fashioned. I believe they're called the engineer's stove, the Benjamin Franklin potbelly stove type model. Very versatile, very nice. The biggest problem I'm running into, though, is that because it dumps out a lot of heat, there's a lot of space requirements that we have to fall into. And then the piping, we have a chimney that already exists that I wanted to tie into. Upon further investigation, we found that that chimney was not able to be tied into. It could be done, especially if I did it myself. I'm sure there's workarounds, there's good old boy tricks. But I do want this to be safe and very reliable. I don't want to have to basically have someone stay guard while we're running the wood stove 24/7. That's not practical and not a lot of fun, and that'll lead to your house being burned down in a disaster. So I'm still trying to tackle how exactly to fit the chimney to that and get it maybe installing a new chimney. So that's a work in progress. So I do have that as a backup to a backup. That is something I'm looking at getting the stovepipe for that, so that if we do have a complete situation where we're going to be without heat for a very extended period of time, I can then run the good old boy tricks to run my wood stove. We do have a lot of wood around us that we could harvest, that we could run it, but at this time it's not one of the things I have as a very reliable heat source. But I digress. The metric we did get, we do have a reliable 2 weeks worth of fuel and backup heating devices, where that's heat 24/7, running very, very hot, and running at max capacity. So it'll be comfortable. The interior of the house will stay between 65 to 70 degrees for 2 weeks solid. Now we can run those same systems at about half capacity and stretch our fuel supply to about a month to a month and a half. Now, I know some people who are preppers are probably laughing at that because you have vast supplies of fuel and heating oil and whatever else you use, and good for you. Again, this is kind of one of those milestones. My milestone was to get 2 weeks of very good, hot, reliable heat that can then be stretched out to a month and a month or a month and a half of intermittent. There's going to be some cold periods, but we'll keep the pipes from freezing, and we'll allow ourselves to not have to be completely shivering and freezing all winter long. So very successful. Another reason to kind of celebrate with some good cider and a very good cigar. And of course, as mentioned, the other reason to celebrate is I'm doing one of these videos out there. I'm trying to finally break into it. There's a wonderful quote that says, once you've walked on the moon, you can always go back and walk on the moon. It's a lot of, maybe this is the inspirational part of the video, where just do it. It's something I really push upon my kids. It's students I have from the past or people I've mentored. The hardest step is just to get started with it. And it's a lesson that I have to keep telling myself, keep reminding myself of, and keep teaching myself even, that sometimes you just have to go out and do it. Whether that's starting to write a book for the first time, just sit down and start typing. That was one of my earliest ones of just doing it. I've had a lot of stories stuck in my head, a lot of good tall tales, but the problem was I wasn't someone who thought I could write a book. Finally, my wife encouraged me to just go and do it. Just write. Sit down, start writing, see where it goes. And it worked. And that's kind of what started me on this whole let's just do it trend. Sorry about that. The cigar was starting to go out. I had to catch it up there a little bit. Still very tasty. Very happy with this cigar. Kind of sad the controversy with Gurkha really went where it went. So now I kind of have to back off from their brand. But I am exploring new brands. Joined the Thompson's Cigar of the Month Club, where you get sent 5 cigars once a month. I actually have a package due in here pretty soon. So I'm trying out some new ones. Used to love Romeo and Juliet's, but then they had a bit of a, should we say, a product or a manufacturing quality went downhill. So I kind of backed away from those guys. Looking towards Camachos. I've had a couple of good Camacho cigars recently. Those ones I do, those might become my next favorite one. So what else is going on here in the homestead? Well, winter is fastly coming upon us. We have all the winter weather warnings coming up, ice storms coming up. We're just now, Halloween is tomorrow. Oh, and on that note, do not be shocked if I'm talking about Halloween or the day before Halloween, the beautiful full moon. And this doesn't get out till Monday or Tuesday. I would like to get this out tonight. I highly doubt that'll happen. I'd like to get out tomorrow, but I doubt that'll happen. So Sunday or Monday, I'm shooting to try and get this video edited, make it look all pretty. Maybe cut out some of those times I'm really trying to stoke my cigar, try and get it back to life, so you don't have all those pauses in the video. But we'll see. So, yeah, getting out and just doing it. What else do we have going on here at the homestead besides snow? Chickens are doing good. We're going to try wintering the chickens for the first time. Now, we've had chickens for many, many years. So like I said, this is a work in progress and it's going to be rough. It turns out I did not clear enough memory out of my phone before starting this video. So it cut out. The rest of the video basically was just me talking more about projects that are going to be done on the homestead. But honestly, I'm glad it did cut out, as those make good topics for future videos. And I was starting to just kind of ramble on. I'm pretty sure everyone's noticed that. So anyway, thank you for joining with this first video. Like I said, hopefully they're going to get better as time goes on. And we'll see you next time.